call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to do the roll.
Present. Commissioner Snyder.
Here.
Commissioner Warren.
Here.
Commissioner Zetter.
Here.
Commissioner Henry.
Here. As is always our tradition, we'll have an opening prayer. Commissioner Snyder will say that. And say, Commissioner Zetter, please.
Heavenly Father, thank you for gathering us here together this morning as free people to discuss the business of the county. And as we do, Lord, we are mindful of the great blessing of this freedom and also the great responsibility that comes with it. Lord, we ask for a blessing today and always upon our community, especially those that are suffering and hurting in a variety of different ways. Help us, Lord, to help them as neighbors in any way we can. Ask for a blessing, we all do, Lord, for all of our troops, especially those away from their families in foreign lands, and for all of our public safety, all of our medical personnel, all of our essential services, everyone who puts others before them and puts themselves on the line in order for us to have the great benefits that we have. And Lord, our hearts continue to be heavy as we think of all of our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, throughout the world, that are suffering great oppression and in harm's way from evil. Lord, please let your hand of protection be over them and over their land. And please, Lord, help us to move towards peace in that region and throughout the world. As we prepare to conduct the business of the county, Lord, give us the wisdom necessary to make the best decisions that we can. We ask all this in your holy name.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I guess checking to see, are there any additional items for the agenda? We're aware of. Let's see. No. Our chief administrative officers are saying no. Okay.
Make a motion to move.
Support. Okay. Motion and support for the current agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, draft minutes from February 17th.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion? Any revisions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Okay, going around should be travel requests, grant applications, budget amendments. Are there any comments now or later? That'd be good. Department head or department updates. Let's see if we have any departments that wish to report.
No department today.
Okay, some are on the agenda, so they may be reporting on that, but. Okay, public time then.
Just want to let everybody know that the local group Stand Up Michigan Lapeer County is hosting former Secretary of State and current State Senator Ruth Johnson on April 6th at 7 p.m. at the American Legion Post here in Lapeer. Due to redistricting, she has gained the 4 southern townships of Lapeer County, so she'll be representing some of our great citizens here. So I just want to let people know about that if they want to get to know her and hear what she's about. And also just to let you know I support the bonuses for the community mental health. This pandemic's been hard on everybody. It's brought in a lot of mental health issues in a lot of people. So it's important that we have the resources and the people and staffing to take care of those issues. So I just want to show support that. Thank you.
Is everybody hearing in the back? Is the microphone there working well enough? Yes? Can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'm not saying anybody say no. Okay, any other public members that want to make a comment? Bring out.
Alan Pierce, Hadley Township. A very notable gentleman in our world today, Mr. Bill Gates, says the COVID risks have dramatically reduced, but another pandemic is coming, plus more. Bill Gates said Friday that the risks of several diseases from COVID-19 have dramatically reduced, but another pandemic is all but certain. Speaking to CNBC's Hadley Gamble at Germany's annual Munich Security Conference, Gates, co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, said that a potential new pandemic would likely stem from a different pathogen to that of the coronavirus family. But he added that advances in medical technology should help the world do a better job of fighting it if investments are made now. Follow the money. 2 years into the coronavirus pandemic, Gates said the worst effects have faded as huge swaths of global population have gained some level of immunity. Its severity has also waned with the latest Omicron variant. However, Gates said that in many places that was due to the virus itself, which creates a level of immunity and has done a better job of getting out to the world population than we have with the vaccines. People said that from the beginning. Herd immunity. Let it take its course. This man, who is also responsible for monetarily upholding a lot of these foreign areas where they're doing all this investigation with these viruses and things in the name of population control. I don't know. I guess he's trying to become president of the world.
Good morning. I guess it goes back to create a problem, create a solution for Mr. Gates. Every meeting, everywhere that we have met people, everywhere they would all talk about election integrity. And even if one person did not think that their vote counted or that vote was canceled by an illegitimate one, that is one too many. People in our county know that the fraud in other counties canceled their vote. We all talk about our county, and that's, we're happy to live in Lapeer County. But if someone else in another county canceled my vote, I have an issue. We saw it unfold before our eyes. If you didn't see it, you can always look back and open your eyes and see it. We now see arrests and reports being released all over the country with proof of election fraud. Looking the other way does not hide the fact that something happened. And I thank you today for your discussion on election integrity.
Other members of the public? You do have a second time, so nobody now, perhaps later. Okay, moving on to an update from our medical examiner. I'll ask the group to come forward, introduce yourselves. It's your presentation.
Good morning. Thank you for having us this morning. My name is Brian Hart. I'm CEO of Michigan Institute of Forensic Science and Medicine. We thought it would be a good idea to come down here, have an introduction with everyone. introducing our new medical examiner, kind of just touching base, introducing myself, of course, in a personal manner, and kind of explaining to everyone, just reminding everyone what we do and how we do it. We also brought along with us, and I'll leave these with Mr. Bishop, we have several copies of Dr. Lapeer's CV and copies of his board credentials. Just to kind of go over with everything, with everyone. At Michigan Institute of Forensic Science Medicine, we provide Lapeer County with autopsies, autopsies, transportation, storage, toxicology results, office administration and management, relations with local funeral homes, coordination with police, fire, and EMS locally, molecular genetics when appropriate. We service the Chippewa Indian Tribe in Northwest Michigan, Gladwin County, Huron County, Lapeer County, Ogama County, and Alcona County, of course, here. We wanted to drive here, especially this morning, just to speak to you in person in a sincere manner, just to show you that it's important for us to meet everyone, of course, face to face instead of on Zoom, via phone, via email, kind of put a face to the name. Along with passing out these CVs and copies of Dr. Lapeer's triple board certifications, we also will be around here after the meeting if anyone would like to meet personally and have a personal introduction, any questions that we would like to, we would be happy to answer. We tout our relationships, great relationships that we have with our frontline workers for each county. We are extremely proud to have Dr. Lapeer aboard. Dr. Lapeer is a triple board certified pathologist. He's certified in clinical pathology, forensic pathology, and pediatric pathology. That right there makes him the most credentialed medical examiner in the state of Michigan. We are very proud to tout our professionalism, our close proximity, our turnaround time when it comes to autopsies. As we know that turnaround time is vitally important to family members when it comes to life insurance policies, death certificates, those matters. Dr. Lapeer, in 1 week recently, was able to complete 21 autopsy reports. Just for reference, the average usually in a situation like that is between 3 and 5 a week. So we have a direct, sincere responsibility point that we made it critically important for us to be able to complete those autopsy reports and have that turnaround time for the families moving forward. At this time, I would like to introduce our medical examiner, Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Rashawn Lapeer.
Morning, everybody. Council Evans. We thought it would be a good idea to come up here to meet everybody, see most of the people we work with. After all of that, I'm sure that there's still going to be questions about what's happening or anything that we're doing. Chances are there's going to be death certificates that are pending, and families will call about this. Now, most of the times, once we do an autopsy, we're waiting for toxicology, or once we do an examination, we're waiting for toxicology. Unfortunately, currently, it takes about 6 weeks to get back the toxicology results, specifically because we have to send toxicology testing out of state. There's only very few places in the country that does it, and they have a massive backlog. So what we find is one of the biggest complaints we have, and it's understandable, is revising the death certificate or updating the autopsy report takes forever. And it does take forever, especially if you're waiting to collect benefits or just put your loved one to rest and finalize everything. So in case anything like that occurs and families are calling, that's no problem. You can always call us and you can contact us. And we'll try to work ahead and get everything done as quickly as possible. A lot of the backlog, if anybody has any pending death certificate that's languishing for forever, just get in contact with us. We'll fix it, we'll clear it up. That's no problem. We're trying to do everything within the National Academy of Medical Examiners timelines. Usually their timeline is we try to get everything finalized within 90 days or 60 days. Currently, we're somewhere around 40 days. We're trying to clear up everything and finalize everything. But in case there's any questions, any concerns, anybody will always call us. That's no problem. A lot of the time, if you call me, you're not going to get me, but we're always going to call you back. Usually at the end of the day. We work with law enforcement, and a lot of the times we end up calling families because honestly, no matter what we do for the people that come to me, it's only the families I'm going to change anything for. So we call families, we talk to families, we have a personal relationship with them. All right, thank you.
Thank you. I do have some business cards. I've met you guys before, and I will be those for Mr. Bishop. So,
Remind us of your name though.
Stephen Peter, Chief Investigator.
And again, I just want to know, what Dr. Monbeer said. I definitely want to put an exclamation point on it. Whenever there's an issue, whenever there's a question, please always feel free to reach out to us. Phone, email. I also brought business cards as well. I'll leave those with Mr. Bishop as well. Several. And again, we will be here the entire meeting. We'd be happy to meet personally with anyone direct that. Thank you very much for having us.
See if there are any questions from the board.
Of course.
I have a couple of questions. Since you're forensic, and a lot of people hear about the forensic, a lot of problems right now. People are trying to rechange the autopsy reports because COVID has been a big, huge issue. You're fully aware of that. Some people feel they're labeled wrong because they really didn't have COVID. And I had asked this once before, and I'm going to ask you, can you test that somebody really died from COVID?
So specifically for autopsies, we test the blood for COVID antibodies. And the state lab tests a nasopharyngeal swab, the same nasopharyngeal swab that people test for travel or just to see if they have the disease. So we do test for COVID. And everybody who comes to me is tested for COVID. A lot of the times we find people die with COVID, not disease from COVID. So we do, and we test for COVID. We get many cases, I don't think many from Lapeer, where people have COVID symptoms. They have COVID antibodies. They tested for COVID in the hospital, but the family doesn't believe they have COVID or they died for COVID. In those cases, it's not a medical examiner case. But if the family wants an autopsy, we'll just do it. We look, COVID is still a flu, it's still an illness. We will look to see in the lungs and upper respiratory tract if there's any signs of disease or any signs of infection. So just because the family wants it, we'll do it. We will test molecular, I think serology tested for COVID.
But we don't test for other things as cancer or other illnesses. We're testing for COVID. Why?
No.
If I came in and it said, I'm in an automobile accident, I come in, all of a sudden I got a label of COVID on there. How come? I know it was a bad crash, right? But we're not talking about that. So when I hear you say, well, they died from, or it was in there as they died, why even make that an issue? And we're getting reports all over from the from the FDA, the CDC, conflicting everything that you're saying to us.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying, but you're following these medical guidelines.
Yeah.
And America's kind of like, okay, well, what's going on? I have antibodies. I have 150 in my antibodies. None of your business. I'm telling you that I tell the public because they want to tell me that my antibodies didn't work.
Yeah.
Well, who the hell are you? Right? So that's why we question. I'm not the only one. I'm saying the whole country right now, of course, is asking you these questions.
Yeah.
So to say, I test you for that, even though that wasn't what you died from, no, I want to know what I died from. That should be on my death certificate.
Yeah.
Not that I had COVID involved, because COVID had nothing to do with my death. So people are questioning that. So if you can answer that a little bit clearer, that we do separate, we don't put that on there. But if it's on your
As
death
the cause of
certificate,
death, I understand, yeah,
it should never even be mentioned.
yes,
Right.
I understand.
Is that what you do?
So, yeah, we look at the entire picture, all right? If somebody has human trauma and they tested positive for COVID, it's not going on the death certificate. If I found malignancy and the malignancy was enough to account for the death, COVID is not going in the death certificate. Especially if you have no symptoms of it. You just tested positive for it. A lot of times it would go on the autopsy report because it's a finding, but it's not going to help account for the death. So it's not going to go on the death certificate.
They won't
Death
see it.
certificate, why you died, manner in which you died, homicide, natural, accident, autopsy report. Is a medical document, physical findings I found. Your eyes were blue, you have old age changes in your eyes, it goes there. You had heart disease, it goes there. You had a malignancy, autopsy report. These things don't go on the death certificate because it has nothing to do with the death. So it's two completely different documents.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Pretty much, I think there's more to come, but yes, so far.
Other questions?
So from the time of someone's death to the final dust, what should that window look like?
That window should honestly, as much as possible, be less than 90 days or less than 60 days. The biggest holdback is toxicology testing. So usually once somebody dies, within a couple of days, we can get the autopsy done. Or if there's some sort of family request or religious reasons, we'll come to Lapeer and do the autopsy or do an external exam, or we'll transport them to the facility. Once that's done, on the same day, we call the funeral home. They can come collect the body. Usually we call the families and we sign the death certificate. A lot of the times we get a death certificate that says pending further studies, which means that I have everything I need, a blood sample or piece of tissue that I look under the microscope. It means that you can continue with the funeral service. And within the next couple of days, within about a week, or 2 weeks, I'll finish the autopsy report. And from there, I hold the autopsy report until I get the toxicology results to make sure it's negative, or to make sure, or to see what the person overdosed from, what would be necessary. Here, until I have all the results, I'm not going to release the autopsy report because it makes no sense releasing an incomplete document, and I'm going to may have to change within the next couple of weeks. And then I'll have to call everybody, sorry, that was not right. Usually in around March now, I'm finalizing cases from, I think, mid-January, late January. So in about 2 months, we can get finalized autopsy report, which most cases nobody asks for. And we update the death certificate online, the funeral home gets updated their certificate and they can release it to the families. So I'm saying to you, within 2.5 months, we should finalize it.
But
And don't get me wrong, I think you guys have done a great job with getting the bodies to the funeral home and so they can have the funeral services. Where we hear a lot of complaints, or at least I have, is actually getting the death certificate so they can, finish the life insurance and, all that type stuff. And at one point, it seems like it was a lot longer than, 60 to 90 days.
correct, it was.
So that's where we're hearing
Okay.
complaints.
And you're not the only one. And that's why we've made strides to shorten that time frame. One thing that I want to mention when we talk about toxicology results, there's no lab in the state of Michigan that actually can process those toxicology results. For instance, we send ours to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That a lot of times that's where the turnaround time comes from. We have to wait for toxicology to come back. One significant piece of this presentation I forgot to mention earlier was we have a full service lab in Saginaw, and within 3 to 4 months, we plan to have the capability to be able to run our own toxicology results, which means at that point, I don't want to throw out a time frame as far as how much more quickly that will turn the process around. But when we're able to do those on site, we'll be the only lab in the state of Michigan that will be able to process toxicology. We anticipate really shortening that window. The state average is around 90 days. We want to get that in our facility to under 60. And again, I don't want to speak before we start to be able to process the toxicology results ourselves. But if all goes well, knock on wood, we'll be able to really shorten that window. And you're right, that has been an issue, not only in this county, but in other counties. We made some changes. We put in some infrastructure. We've refined some of our policies and procedures to where now we are very comfortable with the fact, as Doctor said, right now we're about 2 months. And again, that's a priority for us. That's the number one priority for us. Because as Doctor said, those, unfortunately people are going through the worst time of their lives, obviously, in a situation like this. They want to be able to have that closure where the individual, their loved one is, they understand what happened, what caused their death. More importantly, they'll be able, in some cases, families are suffering, they'll be able to obtain those insurance benefits and quickly from there. And honestly, that is a priority.
So one of the other questions I have is,
Right, could you speak up just a little bit more?
one of the other questions I have is when it comes to, obviously somebody's death, whether it's suspicious, whether it's law enforcement involved, saying, we question how this person passed away, or, somebody just dies of, whatever happened. I mean, obviously, when somebody's, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they go to bed and they just never wake up, what triggers an autopsy?
That's a great question. Go ahead, Doctor. That's a great question.
So in those cases, if there's any reason why the primary care physician cannot figure out why there's a cause of death or manner of death, they come to me. There's only 5 options that you have for manner of death: homicide, suicide, accident, natural, or undetermined. Primary care physician supposed to only sign natural death certificates. Homicides, accidents, suicides, or non-natural causes of death supposed to come to me, especially for either visual inspection of the body to make sure that it's trauma or a full autopsy. In these cases, we usually do full autopsies specifically because you don't want a question afterwards. Was there something else that could have accounted for their death, especially in accidents? Homicides, because we're going to be testifying in court, are going to look for any other cause of death. So, more specifically for your question, any case where it's suspicious or anybody has any questions, then we get law enforcement involved. Usually they're involved before me. The investigators who are from the community, they go to the scene, review the scenes, and then in each case, they call if we can't figure it out on the phone, or we still have questions, we bring the person in to the facility for autopsy or visual inspection.
I mean, me and the sheriff had this conversation. You know, personally, my mother died at 73. She went to sleep. She just never woke up. She had had some other health issues and stuff like that. I live in a small town. I live in Elmont. I've known law enforcement there for a long time. She was there with my father when she passed away. And honest to God, I would have been mortified if they would have done an autopsy.
Yep.
She was so peaceful, and that sort of thing when she passed. And I understand it's a fine line, you know, because obviously nobody wants something to have happened, you know, by somebody else's hand or whatever. But you know, I truly think that as long as our law enforcement is the one that's making that determination, saying, okay, nothing looks out of place, you know, that sort of thing. It's just like saying, I mean, this was 10 years ago for me. I mean, I would have, like say, been absolutely mortified if she would have had to have an autopsy.
And no matter what everybody says a medical examiner does, most of my work is made easy because of law enforcement. Nobody is as suspicious as a police officer, right? So once we get a call that sheriff, police officer says it's not suspicious, everything is in place, I'm certain that it's not suspicious, everything is in place. So most of my credit goes to police officers. And they go, they look, make sure there's nothing suspicious, nothing's out of place, it's a peaceful death. And so we take care of the violence aspect, homicide, suicide aspect. As long as we can get a medical history on one person, what I can write on the death certificate, then we have a reason why they died. Old age, somebody who dies peacefully in the school, a senior person, or somebody with a long, strong medical history. Cases like those, they don't have to come in. We can release directly to the funeral home, and hopefully the primary care physician is going to sign, or if they are unwilling to sign for whatever reason, we get the medical notes. We take pictures of the body, and I could sign the death certificate without bringing in the person or doing an autopsy. Because, to be honest, when I die, for whatever reason, I do not want an autopsy. Because I'm still a physician, it's still part of medicine, but an autopsy is not what you see on TV. It's not a surgical procedure. It is, I'm sorry, but it's brutal, right? So as much as possible that we do not have to do autopsies on people, we try not to do that. But if I have nothing to write on the death certificate, I have to do it because I can't ask the person. Or if there's going to be a legal issue with this, specifically because I don't, we cannot have somebody ask you, did they have something else that could have killed them? But I didn't look, so I don't know. That's the reason why we don't do partial autopsies, specifically because we want a final answer, because we can't go backwards. And this is why we end up taking blood and wasting a lot of resources, taking bloods, taking samples, because we can't go backwards. So this is the one time we get to see them. This is the one time I get to finalize everything. So we end up spending the time and do it right. Finish.
Thank you.
Other questions for the board? Okay, we thank you for being
That's
here,
much.
your presentation and answering questions.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now moving on to Health Department team. I believe we have a draft with the changes, what's in the packet, or is that?
We'll be around. Any questions?
What was in the packet is correct and what was given to me today.
I'm sorry.
There was something new given to me today, so it's not gonna be in your packet.
Okay, we do have that. Board has it? Okay, so the draft in effect would be different. We're approving something that a little bit different than what you're seeing in the packet, but you should have before you. Are there any, well, let's see, is there a motion on the topic? Since this is really going forward from a motion we approved before, this indicates changes in the contract amount.
So the contract that we're talking about is the one that was in the email, no?
The one in the packet is outdated. That's all I know. I don't know how you received something new.
The request for action dated March 3rd. Request approval of the price change for canteen services as it relates to senior program congregate home delivered meals. Dated 3/1/22 with effective date 2/14/22. Signature of the letter. Letter attached. There's a draft motion. The secret process started. I will move the draft motion from this request for action dated March 3rd, 2022. Draft motion is I move approval of canteen services price increase for the senior programs meal with signature by the letter at no additional cost for the county general fund. And in conjunction with that draft memo, makes reference to this attached letter dated March 22nd, 2022. It lists all of the individual prices. They are lower as a result of administration's work with Kathy and with Johnson. That letter is signed by Michael Stump, VP of Commissary and Business Development. So is that the one, Madam Clerk, that you have in front of you? Or
My original is with the chair.
do you have a copy of that? The chair, we just need to make sure that gets.
I'd like your
I'll give you mine.
I guess it must have been by email. I knew I seen the copy.
And also, it was in our basket, late last night, early this morning.
What changed?
The amounts for the contracted amounts.
And I'm sure now that I introduced it, if there's a second, Kathy and Clifford, if you want to give you more
I'll
details.
support it.
Okay, we now have a motion and support, discussion, addition.
Do you have any questions?
Well, just give some background to the commission as far as the changes between last
As
week
far
and
as the
today.
changes?
Yes.
Quentin made a phone call to Canteen, and talked with them. I then subsequently had several phone calls with him, including last Friday, where there was still some hesitancy. But by the time we finished talking, he said that he would get me something by Monday. It did not arrive until 20 minutes before the advisory committee meeting on Tuesday morning. So the advisory committee did get information that we had gotten a reduced amount, but that we didn't have time to do all the calculations before. But it's about a 40% increase as opposed to a 70% increase. I believe the cost savings, I'm running good progress in here. Over the life of the contract, if you recall what we calculated, about $250,000.
Originally with the 70% increase, it was, and then going from the 70% down to the 40% is roughly about a $250,000 savings over the life of the millage.
Over the life of the village.
Over the life of the millage, yes. I mean, that's just roughly off the top of my head. I don't have those calculations in front of me.
Where we originally were, it was higher, we're now bringing it back down.
We're bringing it back down,
That's-
yes.
that's-
It's the last page of your packet, I think.
Yeah.
There's two sets. I have a copy of the new numbers with the correction on the bottom, with me, that I can give you all before I leave with you, Mike. For the entire thing. But it brings it down to 3916, that we requested.
So I think that's on the agenda for
It's not on the agenda for today, correct?
No, the last page is new numbers.
so the amounts, if there's board concern about the amounts, Commissioner Schneider could certainly read them for you. It is as we're pointing out, 40% reduction from what was in your packet.
It's a 30% reduction.
30%.
From 70 down to 40.
Okay.
So under the description portion within that letter that I sent from Michael Stump, dated March 1st of 2022, congregate meals, quantity 0 to 64, the price is $3.14. 65 and over, it's $3. Homebound hot light is quantity 0 is 224, it's $3.43. 225 plus is $3.13. Breakfast each is $3.04. Third cold meal each $3.05. Emergency meal each $3.04. Soup each $1.60. And boost each $1.60.
The only thing
So-
I don't see on this is, how long is this good for?
It was, how long is that, the price is good for?
Yes.
It's going, the letter specified that they would review it quarterly, and that was because they were concerned that we were going to pass this and then suddenly put a whole lot of things on the menu that were higher priced, and I assured them that that was not the intent, and that we would be watching those prices. I actually asked them to tell me what we need to keep it within for the month for these prices, and they wouldn't give me that, but they did give me, or say that they would review it quarterly. I didn't get any impression from them that there was any intent that they were just gonna say in 3 months, sorry, we're jumping the price. I didn't get that impression at all. I think they just were wanting to make sure there was a safeguard in there so that we would still maintain the meal prices within the range that we had told them we would.
So to clarify, we really are not committing to a price for any length of time. We're also not really
But even the
committing to
original,
a contract for any length of time.
even the original though, it didn't guarantee any length of time before it would be reviewed again.
Right.
And that's why we did build a percentage increase into the millage request to account for price increases going on.
And I think it's important to note that historically with Canteen, the agreement that we have goes back to 2013, and in all those years between 2013 and now, they never increased the price. So historically, they probably were a little lax in factoring in inflation adjustments.
They
Yes.
admitted they were.
I'd like to say that when I spoke with Michael Stump on the phone, I acknowledged that the 2008 contract had been locked in at a price, and that our menu and our needs had changed, and it had not factored in any inflation over the last 13, 14 years. The 70% increase was unacceptable, and so that was the leverage to negotiate with him to say, we're not doing 70% increases based on an unknown number that you're going to have forever and ever. We cannot control supply chains. We cannot control gas prices. We cannot control the price of, their processing costs. We need to be locked into a number. We need to have an agreement. So part of the deal, so to speak, is that we will have quarterly conversations, because I want to know well in advance, or at least give Kathy well in advance, what they're going through as a business model. Are they seeing price increases? What are they thinking about? Right. But our intention to go with Canteen Services was based on that they can't do 70%. That's not realistic. So a 30% decrease is realistic over a 14-year stretch. I think that brings us back up to market. But I made it very clear to Michael, we will not be increasing prices every quarter. We're not going in. He needed to come up with a number that was going to satisfy the millage. He needed to come up with a number that was going to be acceptable for a 4-year millage. And that was very clear on the phone.
I had to reiterate that on Friday as well, so.
Well, that was gonna be my one question or clarification. Appreciate all the background and all the work that went into this too. So maybe this part of the discussion is better to be had when we finalize the millage, but it's just worth at least asking the background question right now. Should the millage multiplier be based on these numbers for 4 years, or is this the number that we're good at in this place right now, 2022, but the millage request should factor in some type of cost of living increase?
I think you had did that.
We factored in a 4%.
And Michael seemed to think that that was a sufficient factor to work with for the.
Correct.
Okay, that was my only clarification.
At this point, given what our inflation is right now, I would think that's pretty scary to him to look at and say that he could stick to it. But at least we'll be reviewing that periodically. We would be expecting from them justification that made some sense if there are increases. Okay, is there further discussion? Okay, if not, again, we're approving the motion and the agreement or the letter in effect from Canteen Services with the new prices, reduced prices. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Thank you. Next topic is something that comes from community mental health. And I would note again to the board, there is a new draft motion. Make sure you are aware of that. Essentially what it does is add in specific names to who's getting these increases, meaning, as I see it, community mental health staff and AICC employees. As it wasn't in the original.
Yeah, the original motion I sent down, there is a memo that I had sent to county administration. Essentially, this is a request for CMH to reaffirm county motion 193.1, which was passed last fall. And then to add to that, the AICC staff, who are also under contract with Region 10 and would be eligible to receive these payments.
So motion is there. Do I have for discussion? Do I have maker of the motion? Mover?
Does it coincide with what we've done with the county, or is this is separate? They received some of our stipends?
Last year.
This is additional about that.
This is a offer from Region 10 as staff retention strategies. all the participating CMHs are seeing staff move to private industry, to schools, especially Lapeer County. We have the lowest paid staff in Region 10, so we're even losing staff to our Oakland, Macomb, Genesee, St. Clair, even to some of our regional partners. So this is an effort to, recognize their hard work and make an attempt to reaffirm their commitment to our agency.
And we have the same issues with other departments in the county.
Absolutely.
Sheriff Department, everybody else is
Absolutely.
in that same boat.
I would say, in fairness, this is a little bit like what the legislature did with law enforcement, where they put money on the table where we didn't really have a whole lot of choice but to ignore it. It's not, in effect, our money, but
Well,
outside,
it is our money. Every dollar,
not general fund.
every dollar that is generated, whether it's federal, whether it's regional, whatever, it's all taxpayer dollars. Every dime. So I guess the issue that I have with it is just in November, we did this for the whole county, all the county employees. So if we approve this today for your group, how does that make the rest of our employees of the county feel? Why are they less important than your group?
I would argue they're not less important. On behalf of my staff, I would argue that Region 10 has put this money on the table, made it available to us. There's absolutely no additional cost to Lapeer CMH, to the county. They're reimbursing the amount plus the employer's share of the FICA, and they're covering the entire cost. So I certainly don't devalue any other county employee, but certainly can't ignore an opportunity to provide retention funds to retain staff in my organization.
So can this money be used for anything else, improving other programs that we currently have? Adding personnel or something like that? We're talking, how many employees total?
We have 141 positions, I think 130 filled. So approximately 130 employees.
So $260,000 is what we're talking about. And could that money be used to benefit other already, programs that are going on, whether it's, the Golden,
Carney Hall, Golden Arrow. This particular
Can
stream,
we put extra staff over there to actually benefit, the people that use those?
I would say we have adequate staff right now. Our biggest issue is retaining those staff. Sheriff McKenna can attest, we just lost our law enforcement liaison to another organization. She's highly qualified, made a ton more money. Wages, whether we like it or not, in Lapeer County, wages in terms of retaining employees, I think CMH is much like the Sheriff's Department. We have the highest volume of employees, but we have the highest volume of turnover because we take in new people, we train them up, they become valuable assets that, can go to neighboring counties, make more money. Same with professional staff. We get a lot of people out of college. We provide the initial training to get them through their initial licensing. They pass their licensing exams. Then with that full license, you know, they can practice independently, they can go to another organization and make a lot more money. So,
everybody has that situation.
oh,
We're in the
absolutely.
middle right now of a wage study report, so we can try to understand you loud and clear. We want to give the sheriff's department the same kudos that you're getting.
Correct.
And so when you're getting it, everybody else is, I have 14,000 sisters, I have a good-sized family. I know what it's like to sit around a table. I went and had to get a part-time job as a kid. You think I got to keep my money? No, I had to share because we had all needs. We all have to take care of things. And it's kind of the same way. I mean, you say this business, it's the same thing. It's taxpayer dollars going, and we can't help certain pockets. So it gets kind of tough to explain to the community, well, community mental health's got a special situation over here.
Right.
They're in dire straits and can't keep their people.
Right.
I want to get up, give the sheriff what he needs, because he's in the same boat, but I can't. So I gotta help sheriff, but so we're trying to explain, how do we pass on to give this increase? We just gave you guys an increase. Because you got the same, you just got the same.
Remember, we gave a $3,000 stipend to every employee of Lapeer County. And I think that was great for morale and everything else. But if we do this for CMH, I think we look horrible compared to, you know, the other departments. I mean, why doesn't Jackie deserve it? Why doesn't Quentin deserve it? Why doesn't, you know, I mean, anybody.
Everybody deserves it. I would never argue that point.
Yes, but to call in Commissioner Jarvis, she's been waiting patiently.
We're doing the wage study now.
Correct.
And so our employees know we're working on that, but if the $3,000, I mean, that, we've never provided that much.
I know.
And it isn't fair to the rest of the employees for the county. I make a motion to deny.
Just don't approve the current motion.
Oh,
Commissioner
is there
Snyder,
one other one?
we don't have a motion at this point.
First of all, nobody here blames you as the guy for bringing this in. If any of us were wearing your particular title today, we'd be doing exactly what you're doing. Somebody's giving me money to be able to give to my underpaid people. Hey, and it's not costing the county general fund taxpayers any money. That makes perfect sense. And this would be a great argument for like a high school debate class, because I could sit here and I could make a passionate argument for either side. The reason why it's a little bit more of a complex issue is because you guys fall under the umbrella of county employees. And if that weren't the case and you were an independent agency, then you could take Regions $10. I think that my criticism is a little bit more towards the mental health profession at like the regional level and the state level and the federal level. Just be throwing around $3. Again, we could say it's not costing you, I understand what both of you were saying, but Dial says it's not costing.
General fund.
He meant general fund dollars, and your point is equally, it's still tax dollars. Why isn't the profession maybe doing a little bit better job at trying to identify where needs to be in the community mental health realm, rather than the easy thing of retention is a legitimate aspect of it. That's one aspect of it. But we also know from within our own constituents within our community that there is a lot of program needs that is not getting accomplished at our community level. And we're just, as a profession, throwing money at the problem, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. Maybe they'd be better off if they've got this money that they just have to spend from the federal government. Maybe they do a better job of doing incentive programs for youth to go into the mental health field. Short term, it might not help our pain as much, but long term, I know when the sheriff came to us, he's looking at two perspectives. He's looking at an immediate need for retention and a longer term need. And I think maybe that's
Well, yeah.
what I want to see from.
And I'm hanging my head on the wage study as long-term, but in the short term, we have an opportunity to provide our staff with an incentive to wait,
And that's why,
to wait it out.
that's why if
for the
any of
wage
us were in your shoes, we'd do the same thing.
Right.
But again, we have to think of all the county employees, one of the things it does is it exposes the major flaw at an organizational level with county government being funded in so many different ways. County government, we've always said, is kind of like the catch-all government. When you look at our state constitution, there's a lot of responsibilities that are assigned to local government, which if you're one of the states that Michigan is, that has cities and townships and villages, they are local government. They're responsible for health, safety, and welfare. There's a lot of constitutional responsibility at the state level. And then the county is kind of like this intermediate level. Where does this fit? I don't know, give it to the county. Give it to the county. And then whenever they give responsibilities to the county, ever since 1963, the last constitutional tweaking, the money initially starts to flow and then it dries up. And then the county is supposed to continue to fund it. That's why 83 counties of 83 counties across this state have said to the legislature, you got to come up with a better funding mechanism for county governments because it's systemically broken. And this is one of the reasons why it's broken, is because we describe it as buckets or silos. And every different program that we have gets funded a different way. Some matching funds from federal and state, some just from state, some from federal, some we kick in with local dollars. And so it's very hard to when all of a sudden one bucket starts to overflow and they decide to spend something a certain way, and then all the rest of the county employees are treated fairly. If we were not doing the wage study, I think we would probably bite the bullet on this one a whole lot easier and say it's not general fund dollars, it's gonna go to somebody else. We might as well keep it here in Lapeer County. And retention is
It's a huge issue for my department.
so like I say, for you to bring it before us, completely understandable. For us to struggle with it and not make a decision today until we discuss this with administration a little bit more, because I want to know whether or not there's other things that we can do for county employees to keep track. There are other funding sources that we anticipate coming down the track, because if we can't, it's going to make this decision harder. And then lastly, I would share with you that I requested in a recent meeting, and I'm still going to request it, because I don't want to see CMH just be a discipline that just throws money at a problem. I asked a specific question on behalf of our community where I want to see a presentation here publicly in a meeting of some of your very common community mental health problems that you get presented with all the time. And here's how that flows, and here's what we can do and what we can't do. Because man, I'm seeing over the course of the almost 20 years that I've sit up here, I've seen community mental health budget explode. It's so much larger, just that one department is so much larger than our entire budget put together. And yet we're still hearing the exact same problems and the exact same issues that I heard 20 years ago when I was a rookie up here. So I think those are serious, hard questions that need to be answered, as well as retention.
Yeah, I did run that presentation at Community Collaborative yesterday.
Okay. Well, I know the community's anxious to hear it, and I'm anxious to hear it. And like I say, it might play a little bit better if this request was in conjunction with that, rather than just, we need more money, because I'll agree that the employees need more money, the people that are providing services to our community. But we also have to look at it beyond the employee scope. We have to look at it program-wise. Is just throwing money at something gonna fix it? And
Is
I,
there,
for one, don't think so.
is there a timeline on when you must request this?
The My understanding is the amendment from Region 10 is a payment must be made in March and September.
March and
March and September, $1,000 in March, $1,000 in September.
Two things. One, I don't disagree with comments made. The fact is, we did give a segment for a reason. However, I do wonder if something similar was to come down from, say, BAAA in regards to our nurses, if we would also take the same stance. I believe we probably would, but just something else to consider. There are other organizations that could come down with this. Granted, I don't think there are any upper things for people like the county clerk for them to get these, money funneled down to, but there are, especially in the medical industry, several higher organizations that have these extra funds. In regards to the practical nature of this, let's say today we reject the funding. That is $130,000 that was supposed to get paid out in March. It's not going to get paid out in March. Most likely it's not going to get paid out in September as well. So that's a little over $250,000. That's going to probably sit in the Region 10 budget. Is that what I would assume?
Yeah, presumably.
And is this money?
This is revenue that Region 10 has right now that does not, it's not earmarked. It's extra revenue this year. And one of the reasons the regions have extra revenue is in the course of the pandemic, more people became eligible for Medicaid, which because we're set up like an insurance company, we receive a capitated payment for every Medicaid life in the county. So these last couple of years, our Medicaid enrollment is I'm going to say artificially up. But that tends to be the funding of CMH's, especially we're on the inverse of the economy. So when the economy is doing well, we don't do so well. When the economy's doing worse or things are worse, we do better. And that all has to do with those shifts in Medicaid lives. More people are on Medicaid now than they were a year or 2 years ago because of the pandemic and the people not working and the unemployment. So our funding is up, but as people get back to work and roll off the Medicaid rolls, you're going to see our funding go down.
And that being said, that's a good analogy, so how that builds up.
And we're on the
government's good for giving us.
Can I finish my question real quick? Sorry, I just want to get, because otherwise I'll lose my track here. So this money is specifically earmarked for retention at Lapeer County CMH, correct?
They've earmarked retention funds for all Region 10 contracts. So that includes CMHs, it includes the AICC staff, anyone who works in the Region 10 substance abuse subnetwork, the CMH subnetwork. It also includes the staff and the providers that we contract with.
So this money could not be used, say, because the way I picture it in my head is the budget line says CMH retention funds, Region 10 retention funds, that's $260,000 for the year. It could not say, come to the county and then say, hey, Lauren, here's $250,000 to spend on what you think is best. That would not take place. And the reason I bring that up is because I know the point that we're making is we could spend that $250,000 elsewhere, which is a great point. And I agree the mental health system was a problem, especially with the current region system. However, it's not as though we can go back to Region 10 and say, you know what, that retention program, I actually want to spend that $250,000 elsewhere. Can you give me that money? I don't think it would be accepted. Is that correct or am I wrong? And they would come back and say, oh, well, maybe we'll give you that $250,000 elsewhere.
We have the options of developing other programs.
With this $250,000?
Well, not necessarily with this.
Exactly, that's what I'm getting to.
But there's other funding available we could request for that. The issue with expanding programming right now is I'm down 6 master's level clinicians. Statewide, when you look at master's level clinicians and above in the CMH system, there's 15,000 vacancies in the CMH system across all counties. So as the lowest paying county in the state, what are my chances of attracting good talent? Pretty slim.
Well, and to that point, and this is where I, in a way, stand with you on this.
Right.
Is let's say, and it has been discussed in Lansing, it's been discussed several times, that they would like to do something in returns to law enforcement retention at the county level. So let's say, by magic, Sheriff, the county is able to receive a $2,000 a year, separate in 2 months, stipend to help with retention of employees. Would that be beneficial to the sheriff's office? It probably would. Fact is, you bring up a good point. I've seen the CMH numbers. I know the pay rate is not great. The fact is, our CMH is going to be suffering on these positions until the wage study gets done, which we know is probably not going to be considered done until at least the end of the year, and not implemented until a year or two after that.
Well, yeah, the way I look at it is best case for implementation is probably October 1. So at least this program buys me some opportunity to throw some carrot at some staff to say, please stick it out with us. We're doing a wage study that, will more than likely be implemented next fiscal year. And by then, my hope is the economy's back soaring and we'll actually be on the lower side of our revenue cycle again.
What I would like to see, just as proof, because I don't think I could support this today, because the point's brought up, but what I like to see as proof is if you could show us the positions and find that those positions are on an annual basis below $5,000, because technically this would be $5,000, take the $3,000 plus the $2,000 from here. If you can show that the annualized salary for these employees are $5,000 less than the average, I think you'd make a good point.
Well, and if I can, just on the same topic, number one, when you said use this money to stick it out, that's what we did with the $3,000 one for all of our county employees. We're doing this initiative, and here's what we're giving you in the meantime to stick it out. Second point that I would make, you just addressed, which is the fact that it's across the state that there is a shortage because the kids come out of college and they'll do the lower degrees, but then to ask them to go back to college again. So I'm saying at the state level, at the regional level, it's broken. They're taking the easy way out if they're just passing money. Why aren't they using the money as incentives to turn around and use this, tuition refund program or we know the shortage.
There is movement at the state level.
Right, we know that the shortage is
through
at the higher.
NBHHS and through our CMHA, our trade association. We've had workforce development meetings with the LEO at the state level, Department of Education, Department of Mental Health. They brought all of us together to talk about staff retention strategies across the state, and part of that is tuition reimbursement. Schools are struggling for teachers, CMHs, we're struggling for master's level. Clinicians and above are our primary deficits. In the CMH system, there's also a deficit. It's like at the top and the bottom. The direct care workers who provide the direct services, like in our Stepping Stone program, some of the staff in our Harmony Hall program, the staff in the residential programs, all of those type positions, we call them direct care or paraprofessional positions. Across the state, there's 10,000 vacancies in those types of staff because of the high burnout and the extra stress of living in the environment of a pandemic is put on those things.
I almost, with that in mind, I almost would find it more palatable if you, rather than just giving up all this money or just spending all of it across the board, if you were able to use it, if you were able to demonstrate that these particular programs that we have in Lapeer County are not able to satisfactorily be accomplished because we don't have enough of these line level people because of the pay that they're and give them the additional money, that'd be very analogous to what we just did with the parks with lifeguards. We said lifeguards are a key aspect of our parks, they're drastically underpaid, so let's go ahead and let's bump them up.
Right.
So
So we are rolling this out to our sub-provider network. So our group home staff, staff at Lapeer Teamwork, all the staff in our provider network are gonna benefit from this incentive program, retention program that Region 10 is offering. We are rolling that out to our entire sub-provider network. The staff that are being excluded now are the county employees.
The other, speaking,
Explain that, who's being excluded?
So if you do not approve this motion, the only staff in the local CMH system that won't be getting this payment are the direct county employees. Because everyone every group home we contract with, Teamwork we contract with, all of our subcontract network, we are rolling these payments out to that subcontract network.
and I was just about to bring up the
So
one thing I do worry
in
about.
a way, that's kind of the reverse fairness to my county employees. Just because they're county employees, they're not gonna get
Well, then that's,
this incentive.
the thing I worry about is,
You should have come to us with this before you did that, though. I mean,
well, that for Region 10 though, he didn't even have a
Right.
choice in that, correct?
Well, I have a choice, but when I see group homes struggling to retain staff and to attract staff, it's my obligation to provide the best care I can for the people we serve. And if there's not staff available or good staff that are willing to stick around, I'm not doing my job. So my job is to make sure that the 1,800 people that we serve, that I'm responsible for the mental health care, that they get the mental health treatment they deserve, and they get it from qualified staff who are committed to doing the job and doing it appropriately.
And with the morale issue, and this is what I get concerned about, is hearing that further, because before you even said that, I wrote down inverse morale issue.
Right.
Because let's say we reject this today, I'll use the sheriff's department because I know the sheriff's department a little bit better. Let's say the state did do the scenario I explained out, and they said they're gonna give you $1,000, and then we,
You mean like they did before?
yeah, and then we come out and we say, no, we're not gonna give you that $1,000 that's sitting in that pocket, the money for you. What do you think the morale is gonna be at the sheriff's department? What do you think the morale is gonna be at CMH? CMH employee B or CMH employee A, who has been sitting there for several years, hears about a job opening in Oakland County. Oakland County is not only giving them this extension, this $2,000 extension, but they're offering better pay than we currently are. Why would employee A or employee B, who've been here for a number of years, stay in Lapeer County? What would be the incentive? There would be none, because they would look at the county and they would say to the county, they'd say, yeah, I could make $2,000 plus more money over in Oakland County, or I could stay here where I'm already underpaid. Why would I stay here? And in all honesty, I would not give any flack to somebody who says, I'm not gonna stay here, I'm gonna go somewhere else, because I'm getting rejected money that was specifically donated to me from Region 10. I see the point on the other side, but
Brendan.
That's why I say though, there's a point that can be made on each side.
In all
I'm gonna make
fairness,
one on each side.
in all fairness, okay, our sheriff is sitting there. If he chose to work in Oakland County as the sheriff, okay, he would make more money. Is that not a true statement? Okay. We have that with all our departments, okay? We're not saying that, I mean, you're never gonna compete with Oakland County.
I agree.
Okay, it's not gonna happen. Now, we're doing the wage study. We're trying to fix this. In November, we just gave every Lapeer County employee $3,000,
Including CMH.
including CMH. The issue is if you do it, you know, it's just like kids. If you do for one and not the other, how does the other child feel?
I'd like to clarify the November payment for CMH, that came out of my funding. That did not come out of county general fund.
Well, but it was all part of the big picture, Lauren, as far as
Correct.
how we came up with these numbers.
But I think it's a fine point.
So again,
It came out of,
community mental health
But that just
is
speaks to the
funded.
buckets.
Yeah.
It is funded
right,
so extremely well, okay?
Right.
Where other departments that are not.
And you've even made mention of that yourself. You're in pretty good standing.
Right.
And
Oh, yeah.
everybody's looking.
When the economy does bad, we do well. When the economy does good, we don't do so well.
But not on salaries. We've had a very thorough debate. I think at this point, we probably need a motion. So we either have something to vote on and continue discussion of, or maybe we need to leave the topic. Is there a motion?
I know, for one, it sounds like a lot of my commissioners feel the same way. I'm not prepared to act on it today because like I say, there is such a complex that has to be weighed. And so I don't know whether you want a motion to move it to another meeting so that if the board decided to do it, it sounds like one has to be done in March. Or if you want to just, we'll bring it back up ourselves if after, I've got some questions, like I say, for administration. Is there something down the road, like you talked about before, we treated all the county employees equally. Those that had funding sources, they paid for it. Those that didn't have funding sources, it came out of general funds, and they gave everybody equal. I guess one of my questions is, do we have the ability to do that again? If I see one organization going, they've got a funding source to be able to do this, are there some others within the county, are there other funding sources that we could treat all county employees the same way? You don't have to answer that today. I'm just saying that's a question that's in my mind and I'm not prepared to take action on today until I know the answer to that. That might require administration and finance looking at all of the different dollar flows while the spigot is on, so to speak, from DC, and it's all of our tax dollars.
I might entertain then a motion if the board's willing to move the topic to full board next week for further information or further consideration.
What are the meeting dates? And so we would have another committee of the whole
17th.
on the 17th, and then there'd still be a full board after that.
On the 24th.
That if we approved it on the 24th, if there was an approval.
Right.
So I would much rather, because it sounds like there might need to be a little bit more, I would much rather do 2 weeks and just as a topic.
Is that a
Not
motion?
as a request, so I would make a motion just to re-examine the topic of CMH Region 10 retention dollars.
And I would say
I would support it.
if you
For the next
put me on the agenda, I will essentially repeat the presentation you
Right.
requested that I did for the collaborative at the full commission. So that would add about 30 minutes. It's about a 30-minute overview of CMH funding and
I think that would be good for the community.
And just before we do that, because I do have a question on the timing, you said
Let me check, do I have a second?
you said the 27th was the next?
So
So
17th and
would that
24th.
be, okay, so 24th, excuse me, so if this was approved, which of course, there's no guarantee that, if this was approved on the 24th, would that still give enough time to payroll to actually execute this? Because from what I understand, it has to be done in March, so if payroll can't execute until April, it probably would not qualify, or is that incorrect?
I could seek clarification on that. I would go on a limb and say if it was approved in March, and it was paid the first payroll in April, I don't think there'd be an issue with that.
Okay, just want to make sure, because I don't want to set all this up and then come
For Region 10 auditing purposes, they're requesting a separate payroll run.
I was gonna ask.
Because they're reimbursing the full cost of the FICA and the employer costs related to that. So it's $1,000, I think, plus 12% or something like that.
I was gonna ask administration, is that a particular problem at all to do that separate one?
It's not a issue about separate run, it's just the who we have on personnel that last week of March to make those runs. So looking ahead at that payroll run, there's gonna be 3 people gone at that time. So Jackie's gonna be making that run by herself. And so it's all timing and back to personnel.
So can we say, let's move this to the 10th, discuss it like we're gonna do, and give authority to act on the 17th and do it that way? Can we do something like that?
If we move to the 10th, we won't have to do any authority, because next week we'll have authority. So if you want to make it the 10th instead of the 17th, I just prefer to have, normally we use committee of the whole as discussion, full board just as final action, but for the sake of timing, I'll just move it
We
to
can
top.
always, we can always go
So we'll
on.
just do it to next week, but I will ask them, I will ask one thing for here next week. We're gonna double check on the whole timing issue too. I would also like you to specifically ask the question, is there anything else that these Lapeer dollars can be used for, community mental health related, besides just this particular stip? And again, like I say,
I can answer that question now. There are extra dollars available at Region 10 besides this incentive payment dollars.
This incentive dollars, I'm trying to figure out, as you're standing before me, are you trying to, legitimately so, are you trying to use these extra dollars to give to your employees as your choice? Or is this Region 10 saying, we have this dollars here and it can be used for one thing and one thing only? And that's to give stipends to existing employees for the purpose of retention.
Region 10, the way I read the motion is, they're providing the funding and it's optional for CMH's participation.
Still not directly answering my question.
Yeah.
CMH, Region 10 rather, has these dollars. Are they telling you these dollars can only be used for stipend payments for existing employees for the purpose of retention, or can it be used for other things?
Arguably, if we don't use it for that, it's available for other things. It's available revenue. But I'm telling you also that at the close of January, I had $500,000 sitting in my budget that's available for needed programming in Lapeer. And we are providing all the programming that we need to provide to meet our contract with the state and Region 10.
I would think you would argue too, that if you don't have enough staff, you can't keep staff.
Correct.
It's pretty hard to
Correct.
use the money for additional programming.
This is the first time in my career at CMH that we have a waiting list for a service, and that's because we don't have the master's level staff to provide that service right now.
And like you've already articulated, though, that is more than just a Lapeer County.
Correct.
That is a shortage in the profession. So again, should at the state level and the region level, they be using our dollars that ended up going to Washington and now it's making its way back. Well, should they be using our dollars in a more wise fashion to try to incentivize more people to get that higher degree so we can have the programming that so many of our people in our community need that can't be provided by just bachelor's level people.
Correct. And there are efforts at the state to look at that. And like I said, I've been on some statewide meetings across the Department of Education, Department of Community Mental Health, and then Leo, looking at those job retention strategies and recruiting strategies and tuition. I mean, if there's anything that's not on the table, because as a state, we have a huge shortage of master's level prepared clinicians and psychiatrists.
Mr. Snyder, are you trying to move with your motion to change the date to
Yeah,
the next
and
full
my
board?
supporter,
No supporter here.
that was my supporter
Right there.
suggestion, I was good. So
Okay.
it'd be the 10th, it'll just be next week.
So the motion now exists to move this topic, not the draft, but the topic to full board next week. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, also no.
Thank you.
Thank you. was thorough debate, more discussion coming forward. Okay. Finance, now we have another interesting topic coming up.
I hate to follow that. But along the same lines, and it's important that I bring this to your attention. This is number 6 in our packet. And I have a request, and we're looking at a digital budget book program. This is what we found. So to Lauren's point, to the sheriff's point, to the clerk, actually any department here, Kathy as well. The one thing that we are measuring in a very, I would say, outdated and less transparent way is performance indicators. As we look down in finance, we're trying to drill down to the root cause of problems. Sometimes we can throw a little bit of money at a problem, but it doesn't solve the problem, right? So they say if you truly want to, kill a weed, you don't pluck the head off, right? You have to dig out the root. So in our way, we're trying to get down to the performance level, what is actually happening, and measuring what's happening on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. Each and every department has a responsibility to send to us performance indicators. Those are numbers on things that they regularly do. Potentially it's arrests at the sheriff's department, maybe it's marriage licenses at the clerk's office, maybe it's number of immunizations or healthcare referrals to the health department. But those performance indicators is what tells the story of Lapeer County. It tells the story of that department. Because if we see in an area that the performance is not doing well, we can target that area, and that's where we put resource on it. Okay, does that make sense? So as Jackie and I have been talking, I have to give credit where credit is due. So with the administrative team upstairs, Emma Brandt, Jackie Bennett, Jackie Arnold, and Evelyn, Michelle, Cheryl Sims, I have to give credit to them because they're looking at things through a different lens of the budget book, the forward-facing, public-facing program that we could use to tell a more transparent story to our public. And what I would like to do, and what I'm proposing, is a system that's going to allow us to report and be more transparent with our public down to the dollar of our internal budgets. If you go to our website right now, you can ask any public member in here right now, if they wanted to know what we spend in administration and ask them how to get there, they would not know how to do that. What I'm proposing is that we invest into a software that allows not only the public, but in any real time, any member of this commission could go online through our website and drill right down to a department level and see what we spend and what we spend it on. It also allows Jackie and I, when we build our budget, to forecast. Currently, right now, what we do is we run a 2-3 year budget cycle. We drop numbers in and we run trends, right? And that trend's basically on a 5-6% lean, and we push it out and say, this is about how much we should spend over 3 or 4 years. This is what we can afford. You add in inflation, you add in property value assessments for increases, those are gains, right, for the county. And we say it should be about this much. We have the ability through software to forecast at a more granular level, and that's what I'm trying to drill down to. We can paint a better picture right down to programming. And so at the end of the year, and Jackie did a fantastic job providing me with reports that shows me in some departments we're 128% over budget just on a line item, right? But right now, I hate to say it because she works so hard, right? She's got to produce Excel file after Excel file. She handed me a stack of 3-ring binder and was like, "That's what you asked for," right? Okay, and it took her away from what she's trying to do with the audit right now. But it was information I thought was important. This type of software acts intuitively with information as it comes in. So when I say, I'll never say again, can I have that report? Because I'll just go and click on the report that I want. And I'll be able to draw down the information that I want so I can have a very serious conversation with the department head based on a single line item. And say, hey, what's going on here? Tell me what's going on here. Okay? It's a cost saving in the future. Now, it costs money. We have 3 quotes. The thing that we're trying to accomplish is we're trying to look into, I'm negotiating is what I'm doing. We have 3 quotes. They did a nice job. The thing that we want, right, it's a Cadillac, but I need it for a Malibu price. So I've got to work with them, and I'm working hard on them right now. Okay. What the high end is, I can provide these quotes to you. What the high end is, What's that?
I think they're in.
Oh, you have them?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So on the high end, you have something around $45,000, and what that looks like is one upfront cost and then the yearly subscription fee, right, for this service, because we're updating their software. It's all web-based. Okay? After that, that one-time fee goes away, and then it's just a yearly fee. We were on a team call yesterday, and I said, we want you to work in Michigan, we want you to work in Lapeer County, you have to do a better job on the pricing. You have to do better for us. They came back and they said, we can come up with something that's gonna fit your budget. I said, great, let's add that number. They have not given me that number yet. The thing that we prefer, they have not got that number back. On the low end, it's a company, you say, oh, well, you know, they have a flat one-time user fee of half the price, and then your ongoing fee is about half the price. Why don't we just go with the lowest bid? I would fear that if we have that mentality, we will get exactly what we pay for, and it's a license-based program. So the price tag looks nice in the beginning, but it's every time that I need to access it, that's a license fee, that's $10,000. Jackie needs it in her department, another $10,000. So at the end of the day, we're right back up there to the highest bid. So what I'm asking for, quite frankly, is I would like to set the bar at the number higher than, I'll call it $45,000. But that will be the ceiling, and I'll negotiate down from that number. But I'd like permission to move forward so I can make a decision and get it in before the end of her audits.
I'd like to make a motion not to exceed $45,000.
Okay.
That would.
Motion, second.
I'll
For
second,
discussion.
I'll second for purpose of discussion. Have you spoke with this is Register of Deeds that has the automation
Yes, we have.
fund? Will that
They're
qualify?
favorable.
Huh?
They're favorable, yes.
If we could do that rather than general fund dollars, that's a win-win situation.
I totally agree.
You would think there's gotta be a limitation on that, which is something.
There is.
What is this program actually called?
The program itself,
Yes.
guess what we call it is a budget builder, is what it is.
Okay.
Am I calling it the right
Budget
thing?
book.
It's a budget book.
It's a budget
We
book.
would have an actual budget book, like a real.
But it's a software program that allows you to create a budget.
Yes, and it's compliant with GFOA guidelines.
I had to go online to see what it meant.
Mhm.
There was a paragraph, that helped a little bit.
Yes.
This is different from the software that the,
What we do now with Mr. Bartley and our,
well, I thought there was talk of moving to this other software system.
totally different.
Yes, and I,
That's totally different.
Yes.
That's totally different.
The Cadillac here is open go,
Yes,
.gov.
yes.
So one doesn't have anything to do with the other, we're not overlapping.
No, none of it. Correct? None at all?
Not at all.
will they play with each other at all?
They'll interface, they all talk. Yes. The goal here ultimately, big picture, long-term, is when either somebody's paying restitution or somebody's buying a marriage license or somebody's buying an adoption license, right? It hits the book, it hits into a register, it speaks instantly, right, into a financial system. It updates automatically and it updates into this budget book. We would see it in real time, so we know where our numbers are at. That's the goal.
And that's gonna be for every department then? Is that correct?
Correct,
That's the
For all-
goal.
For all departments.
correct. What, the timing is important because Michigan is releasing a new chart of accounts. So what has to happen is this, when we drill down, every single department has a activity number, program number, a fund number. Those all have to speak. And so part of this program is having somebody come in here and moving our chart of accounts, which sits on our server, which sits in our system, physically moving that into the new system so it does speak. So when we ring up a bill or we're paying something, it speaks directly into the system. It's a live update in real time.
That live update, does that also then help address some of the comments that the auditors have made in the past about trying to have more real-time updated? And it was always personnel.
That's a goal.
issue
That is a goal.
So I'm saying, are they two separate things, or does that help achieve that goal of having, is it just budget?
It's
Separate from a ledger, or?
It's, well, we have the option of the ledger updating every night to the budget book.
So
Online,
it
the
would
digital
then
budget
help
book.
address some of those.
Yes.
So it really
And
should
it
help,
didn't make our auditors happy.
it really should help with time, especially like.
It should help the department heads, it should help, and any other user that wants to see our budget, any user. You should be able to go on our website, it's a digital book, you should be able to say, oh wow, Lapeer County's got an $80 million budget. How much do they spend on law enforcement? Click. Shows you what the budget is for the law enforcement. Well, how many service calls does the law enforcement have a week? Click. Oh, wow, they have 400 every week.
Will it require a lot of extra staff time to input that data? That's not
No,
being-
it's automatic. But once you get it set up, it's
It's data
automatic.
that's already being put in
I
a
have heard-
system somewhere.
Yes.
It's just not being.
Well, the difference is like for the performance measures, like I believe the sheriff's department is already pulling that information and depositing that somewhere with the state. It's a drag. You just drag that report and drop it.
And things, I apologize for interrupting, but for me up there, this is huge. I mean, to have something like this, and obviously even with the transparency side, it helps on that side too, for the public to see what we're actually dealing with on our line items. But for this program, I just speak for me personally, it'd be huge. It'd be fantastic.
So what sets this program apart from some of the other programs is not only the performance indicators, it's also the forecasting, because they'll forecast out, I believe, 10 years.
And back to you, to help with the public, because a lot of times people think that we have this secret stash of money too that we play with, that we do in the back room and blue stuff, and there is no such thing. So this will help bring everything transparent to everybody. I think it's the right move. I think we're outdated where we're at right now, so.
What other counties have been involved with this system?
City of Kalamazoo uses this specific budget book. The city of Wilmington, that's in Delaware, the county of Berkeley in South Carolina, Tampa Bay, Florida uses these performance measure dashboards. So in Michigan, they're all state approved, by the way. So these are state approved prices. So the NACO certified one, right, is not the one that presented the best. Okay, and they have more representation. But in our opinion, after we saw the performance indicators, which the other two do not, and that's what we like, that's what I like, okay? This was the clear choice. So NACO recommends, if you look in here, it's ClearGov is the one NACO endorsed, I'm correct in that, right? So they have more, how do I say, penetration into the market for this type of thing, but OpenGov speaks better to what we're trying to accomplish, specifically the forecasting, specifically identifying performance indicators.
I would bet NACO probably has some sort of member discount for the other one or something, which doesn't matter to us because we're not members of NACO in Lapeer County anyways. I didn't want to cut you off, Del. Do you have something else? Okay, go ahead. Two things I want to talk. One, I think it's a great thing for department heads, and just so I can clarify, what do department heads say, the sheriff, county clerk, any department friend of the court, would they be able to look at their budget in real time now?
Oh, yes.
Great, that's great, because we all know part of the problem, being personnel chair at one point, has been a problem with, hey, what's in your budget? I don't know, I haven't talked to the finance department or whatever. It's always been a problem. So I think that's gonna be a huge benefit, and it adds the extra level of responsibility that comes with the department head, which I think is great. And more view for department heads to manipulate and move their monies around to better serve the public. Two, public facing. This is going to be a public facing app that you can go on and look at, which is why I'm opposed to, maybe I might have misunderstood, but it sounds like one of these, they have to license every person who can go on and view it.
We don't want that.
We don't want that.
Okay, good, yeah, don't do that. But yeah, I like the idea that you can go on there and look, because right now, and I know we have something at Lapeer, but it's not adequate, in my opinion, which you guys agree. But to be able to go on and look at, for people who, A, are just interested in government, that's everyone out here, or B, people who might be considered running for government, it's gonna be critically important to see, hey, what the budget actually looks like. The final thing I wanted to ask, and this is more to Rick's motion, or I think it was Rick's, was it your motion, Rick? Yeah. maybe I'm being cheeky on this, but what if we only authorized you $40,000 to do this?
Challenge accepted. I get the money. I'm not worried about reading my skills at negotiating the contract table. But what, I'm not worried about it, but, all I'm asking for is let's have a realistic ceiling.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I don't, what's the, what is it, penny wise, pound foolish, right? I don't want to go in and say, well, we can go make that $5,000 break. So we're just gonna go, set it there. All I'm saying is, I'm gonna go for 10. I'm gonna go for 15. The numbers that are on the table today, right, gets us there. So that's the security that I can get it done unless nothing else fails. Because I tell you the truth, if the performance indicators is not part of that package, if I came to them and said, hey, $40,000, that's the best I can do, they're like, hey, it's 42.5. Sorry, the board of commissioners said I have $40,000 and I have to walk away from that. The fact that the other two companies don't allow for the performance indicators, I'd push the whole project off and say we'll do something different. The fact that we have to secure the performance indicators, because that drills down to the level, that identifies the root cause problem, and that's where we can address it. I don't want to just patch it over and say that we save $5,000. I'm going to get that $5,000, but I don't want to be hamstrung by it just in case they need to walk away.
Yeah, I wouldn't change the motion on that because he did say that he was negotiating that down. So I'm good with the 45.
Well, I wasn't sure if he wanted it as leverage either.
Well, I've already told them on the phone yesterday. I said, I got to take it to the board of commissioners. I don't know. This is steep.
How long a period of time does agreement have to be for them to enter into it? Is it 1 year, in effect, a 1 year agreement, or are we?
We're on a 1 year
committing to
roll.
something?
No, we're on a 1 year roll. It's an annual renewal. So,
So if it doesn't perform, we could cut it. I don't know what it.
we
does.
always have an out. They're a vendor. We always have an out. With any vendor, based on their performance, it's a private market. They need to meet our expectations as a customer. If they don't,
Well, sometimes you make so many adjustments internally that they know it's very hard for you to back out. They've got you over a barrel. And you're in effect saying, that's not the case here. We don't have to make a lot of internal adjustments.
you can ask Jackie. She laughed at me good yesterday. That's the exact reason I told them that we need a better price. Because I said in Lapeer County, it's not that we jump into relationships and jump out. We're in for 10, we're in for 15, we're in for 20. So it's been a long-standing relationship based on trust. Work with us on the price here because you're gonna get a long-term customer, right? But it costs them a lot of money too to turn over us as a customer. We're gonna save you money in the long run because we're gonna be a good customer for you if you can help us out getting off the ground. That's the exact, I use that as leverage yesterday.
Are we looking at any price lock when it comes to this? I know it's not part of the negotiation, but did they have anything where it says this price can be locked in for at least 5 years, at least 10 years?
I'll build that right in. Okay. I'll just build it right in. I can lock us in for a multi-year. That's not gonna be a problem. Once they know they have us for a customer for one, just say, 4-year contracts.
The biggest challenge would be going forward, this adding to our overhead costs.
Correct. That's why I
Right
reached
now,
out.
that's 20,000 more.
Right, that's why I reached out to the Register of Deeds, and I also reached out to Zoom.
Okay, other discussion, other questions? Okay, if not, is everybody clear on the motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
Thank you.
More work ahead. Okay, the next thing I have is a topic that we discussed last week or 2 weeks ago. Secure our elections petition. We said we would revisit that. Our county clerk is here. She's indicated she's done some research.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
County Clerk. Commissioner Henry's correct, this was on your agenda February 17th, and it was
Thank you.
privilege. This was on your agenda on February 17th, brought forward by a number of citizens petitions, which had, as I recall from my read,
two distinct topics on their petition. One was requesting that you folks authorize that future elections be counted, the paper ballots would be hand counted, and additionally, questions about ballot drop boxes. So my recollection from the 17th of February, we're discussing the history. When was this legislation, when was this all changed to make electronic ballot tabulation? Looks like from Public Act 91 in 2002, that's when that change was made. Everything that is related to elections is all in law. All has Michigan compiled laws that follow what is in law and what directs what you do and what I do. So that was the answer to the history. When did legislation change? And it's a several page long act, and I do have a copy if you want a copy of that. So
That was 2002?
yes. Act number 91, Public Acts of 2002. So that answered the historic question and the fact that it was legislative. So my humble opinion is that if there is ever any change, it would have to be a legislative change. But again, I am not an expert in that field. That there are so many rules and policies and laws that we follow in administering elections, both myself as the main election director for the entire county, but also all of the local jurisdictions on what they're supposed to be doing with elections. And so it isn't that we just decided on our own how we're going to do this. It's all directed by law. So that is the answer to the history of when that changed, because probably many years ago, ballots were hand counted. As a matter of fact, I had after our meeting on the 17th, and with Crystal Marley's information in the newspaper, I had a call from a retired township clerk, and I think she may be in the room. Isla Burris. She was elected to be Lapeer Township clerk in 1966, and in 1968, her township had to hand count ballots, and my conversation with her about that was very interesting. I'm sure she'll offer her comments if you wish. So historically, in my opinion, and legislation backs it up, is that we move forward for more efficiency, more accuracy, and more correctness in how we conduct our elections. So that is kind of a snapshot on paper ballots, which we have, which I hope we always have. I hope there is no legislation that eliminates paper ballots in Michigan, because that is the gold standard on what my vote was, what your vote was. Those paper ballots are hand marked by us, and they're kept, they're under security, all by law, under special levels of security, and that is the proof of what every citizen's vote was. So we do have paper ballots. It's the tabulation of the counting of those ballots that was in discussion on February 17th. So I have more information about that if you wish to know more about that, or if you want to contact your current legislators to talk about changing that. I don't believe that would be an accurate thing for counting of votes. I know I would be opposed to that. But again, I'm just one voice. The other question that came up on February 17th was a lot of discussion about ballot drop boxes. And so I do have a copy of the legislation about that as well. That was enacted effective October 6th of 2020. Michigan compiled laws under election law 168.761D, talking about ballot drop boxes, requirements, collection of ballots from the drop box.
I should mention, I did make copies of that. So there's some back on the back table that maybe some of our audience has seen.
For the law that directs that. And just, I'm not a local clerk, so I'm here at the county level, but we have 18 townships and we have 2 cities. So I don't know what each one of those jurisdictions do with regard to drop boxes. I know I had to visit Arcadia Township to pay some real estate taxes. They were closed, but they have a drop box. They have a drop box out by their flagpole that I think perhaps is a universal drop box. I don't know that for sure. As it was, the kind treasurer saw me looking at all the notices, came to the door, so I was able to hand deliver my envelope. I didn't put it in the drop box. So that would be another question, but this law I just quoted, talks about the drop boxes and answers, I think, some of the questions that came up about drop boxes as well.
Yeah, it seems to indicate that boxes prior to a certain date, around 2020, are grandfathered in,
That was
no
my
matter
read
what
on it.
condition they're in. That sounds problematic, but that's the law at this point.
That was my read on it as well. And again, when I mentioned on February 17th, it was my understanding that the drop box availability was to allow citizens to hand deliver their ballot to their township, to their jurisdiction, even if the building was closed, if they didn't want to use US Postal Service. So anyway, that is kind of a snapshot on that history and the legislation that drives that, so.
And it also gives them the security measures that they need to take at each of these drop-off places. So, I mean, they're pretty strict that they have to follow certain rules to do that.
The new ones.
The new ones, yeah. But, and the rest of them then, based on what she's saying and what this says, then you probably should talk to your township. If they're in loose to figure out what you guys are doing in your township, so.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah, if they're not in compliance with the new standards, it'd certainly be appropriate to talk to your unit of government about that. One other question that came up was change of the brand of the machine in use. Did you get any information on that?
I did get a little information. They indicated to me that the current voting system is under contract, so there would be contractual things that would go along with the switch out. And then the current system was provided to us, if you will, under the HAVA grant, Help America Vote. And that allowed for the local jurisdictions for the base equipment, their tabulators they needed, and so on, for the county, reports collection equipment and so on, to be provided to us through a grant process back in 2017. So probably if there was a change, it would be at everyone's cost. And I was just at a clerk's training conference, and I was talking to another jurisdiction that has the HART system. And so I just casually asked them, Ken, this is just hearsay, if you will. One of their townships is thinking about purchasing an additional tabulator for use. And the quote from HART company was $5,500, which is fairly similar to what our costs were back when we changed out our equipment. The county equipment is much more expensive than that because of the reporting capabilities and the capture of all of the returns and so on, and also other functionality at the county level. So, for instance, some of our local jurisdictions now want to add tabulators. They might be adding an absent voter counting board, which would require them to have a dedicated tabulator. That's all at their own cost. So if there was a change in the equipment, there would be a contractual deep dive into the legalities of what that would mean to us. And also then the out-of-pocket cost to replace everything, to the training. And it would mean a change in 18 townships and 2 cities, and it's multiple machines. I'm not saying this is a deterrent, but this is just the facts. Multiple machines in all of those places. I think in our last election, when we were running with all of our 80 county boards, I think we counted that we had 46 precincts. So if you have an absent voter counting board in your township, that's counted as an additional precinct, because it also requires a dedicated tabulator and special programming and dedicated workers for that sequestered group to handle absent voter ballots in the precinct. Not all of our precincts have that. Some of them process their absent voter ballots during election day and after the polls close, depending on the volume. So a lot of it is variable, but.
I want to say thank you for getting this information. I also was talking to a state rep about the same information, finding that out. One of the most important things we should all learn from all this is we have to pay attention to our legislators, who's in office. And we got to pay attention to what they're doing and asking questions. This is a future problem, not just today, just like with their phones and their computers and everything else. I was sitting there in 1982 when they came with their first laptop computer out. So we've changed, a lot of things happened since 2002 and 1989 or whatever the other issue was. We got into the machines that makes it much easier. Everybody else their cell phone, so we're all locked up on our cell phones. If the power goes out right now, everybody's lost. You really don't even know your own home phone number a lot of it, right? Because we're so reliant on electronics. Same thing here, legislation put this in the act. And whether you use another machine, if we say, Teresa, replace these machines because these are bad. That's not gonna solve the problem because the machine is what's in question. And I understand the paper ballot part of it, and the cost is not something that the people want to hear right now because they're so riled up over what happened this last election. They know that there was something wrong because it was visual. And they're like, we need an answer. And we're not getting it by this information other than this is legislation that we put people in office to do and didn't know what they were doing, all right? So we're here today to say that we have these machines because we're trying to follow protocol. You have to meet a high standard. I tip my hat and applaud you and every clerk and every canvasser that does your job because you have to meet that standard or you go to jail. We do have those people going to jail throughout the country right now in the state, people who cheated. So they are going to jail. The question that we all have to ask is on the machines itself. On the other side of that machine is a vendor and an owner. And why are they the ones to supervise what's going on the other side of the machine that the people have no way of verifying that is right or wrong? You can verify all your paper ballots. You're doing a hell of a great job. Man, I applaud that. But we're talking about the other side. That the people are asking about why they don't trust these machines is because they've been lied to. They were shown physically. And I heard Brendan tell us about how many we were outnumbered as far as people knocking on doors. Well, yeah, in certain cities, we were outnumbered in certain doors. Across this country, I promise you, we were not outnumbered. When voting things were changing in the middle of the night, when everything was going one way, and all of a sudden you wake up in the morning, they shut down for the first time in history, and they wouldn't even allow our people in, and the votes changed. Why do you think that people question that? So the issues are all back to the machines. What can we do to solve this problem in 2022? You have no answer. You can't give me an answer because it's not your position to do that, or legislation. We need to hold those vendors accountable to what's happening so we have a proper count. It might get overridden this year because we have a lot of people voting, a lot of people upset. But we have to force those vendors and those machines to be accountable, to display to them, to us, on that those machines are accurate. Every IT guy can tell you right now, I can change things on the other side, you don't even know it. Every IT guy will tell you that. And that's the question, it has nothing to do with you, and sorry I had to go through all this, and all of us have to go through this, but we gotta figure out how we solve the voting problem, and that's where we're at today, so. But I plug it, this is legislation, put these machines in place where they're at. We're relying on the government to tell us what and how to do stuff. That's not how we were set up in this country. So,
Mr. Chairman, may I invite Isla Burris to come forward so that she's come into the meeting so that she could share with you it's a brief conversation we had on the telephone.
Yes, I was going to invite her in terms of public time, but it would certainly be appropriate now since we're in this discussion.
It's nice to see you. Thanks for driving in. And microphone.
Bring that microphone
Let me get
down.
my right words here, dear.
In 1966, I was elected. 1968 was presidential election. Lapeer Township at the time, if I remember correctly, this is many years ago, the population was less than 2,000. Election night, the big election night was presidential. Of course, the election workers were there at 7 o'clock, before 7 o'clock, at the stations at 7. 8 o'clock, the polls were closed, but there might have been people in line who were, usually the clerk or someone would stand in line. You cannot vote for those people behind. So sometimes we didn't even get through until almost 9 o'clock That year, it wasn't like that. You have to, at the end of election day, or the voting, we had all of these reports that had to be filled out, how many voters were there, so on and so forth. And that takes several times because it has to be accurate, because when we go into the county clerk's office, we cannot leave the county clerk's office until they have certified that everything is correct after the count. Well, this is paper ballots. This is presidential election with probably an 18 by 24 ballot with probably 6 different parties on it. Plus, there's your nonpartisan ballot, and there are all of your proposal ballots to be counted. We started, I would say, probably about 8:30, 8:45. At 4 o'clock the next morning, I allowed my workers to go home, except for the 4 that had to go into the county clerk's office with the ballots in the sealed box and wait for them to verify that the poll book was signed properly, so on and so forth. Then they could go home. So instead of 13 hours at the polls, it was another 8 hours at just counting. Because after you've been there 18 or 13 hours, as you're going through polling or tallying all of these votes with your hatch mark, oh my goodness, I voted for I put a hatch mark under the wrong person. So then you go all the way back. Now this was my first election. Today I would have been smart enough to let them know that I needed to tally everybody at a certain point. Are we all in agreement to the vote? And if so, then push those ballots aside. So we didn't have to go back and start all over again. I was not smart enough at my first big election. Luckily, I had a very agreeable vote after I had gone to a presentation before the next presidential election. And you can all laugh at punch card elections, but my board allowed that. So I did not have to have my election workers working that many hours. I called my son last night to tell him, he calls me at 9 o'clock every morning to be sure he's still alive. And when I told him last night I wouldn't be home, he said, Mom, I remember you coming home to get our breakfast in the morning. He was 17 years old, so he could remember. So
21 hours for most of the workers, plus for those that had to go into the county, then additional hours. And that was with a smaller population, 68.
I wasn't at the county clerk's office, did I?
We should note the clerk, what hours do you normally spend on election? By the time you go?
So many. In November of 2020, our last precinct came in at 8:15 the next morning, so I brushed my teeth and reopened the office. It just because people that haven't worked the election are at the office door wanting a copy of the unofficial results. They want to know what happened all night long. So at 8:15 the following day, it was a exhausting week. I want to thank Isla for calling me. I had the pleasure of working with her, but she was the clerk when I was the clerk in 1992. And when she called me the other day, I was just thrilled to chat with her and to hear the story about hand counting paper ballots. Thank you so much.
We thank you for your service.
Thank you for coming in and explaining that to us. You're welcome.
Okay, to our clerk, or unless our clerk wants to make any other comment.
I will take just a second to say, you probably know, we have one township that has an election in May. We don't always have May elections. The election calendar, if you will, is May, August, November. So this May, we do have Goodland Township that has a library proposal. Goodland Township has their own library, and so they're looking for a millage to support that and to continue their local library, which that's kind of neat. They have a freestanding building that they renovated, and I've never been inside it, but anyway, May they have an election, and then getting a lot of activity at the counter for August primary filings with candidates. And the deadline for filing for the August primary is April 19th at 4 p.m. So that will be at my office for a county level position. So, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we're now back to public time. So if any of the members of the public would like to make additional comments.
You're probably dreading seeing me stand up.
I wondered if.
Welcome. I apologize, I got in after department head and we got a lot going on, so I appreciate the time. Jailed, one first for the stats, jailed in the last week, 10, Elmont 1, Lapeer City 1, Sheriff's Office 7, Dryden Township 1. Out of those 10, there were 4 felony charges put out and 10 misdemeanors. Out of those, 6 of them male, 4 female. Medical treatment or intervention 1, detoxing from drugs or alcohol 1, 155 traffic stops, 31 car crashes, 2 personal injury accidents, unfortunately no fatalities. Couple things, we've been really, really busy, almost crazy busy. Not so much on the road stuff, just with everything kind of going on. I think one of the things that I want to address, I know because Commissioner Schneider has asked and been so gratuitous with asking about the ad hoc committees and stuff for that. I just wanted to update on it because you've asked me multiple times of it. I give a lot of credit to Quentin and to Jeremy. We are moving, very, very excited about that. They've put a ton of work into it. Obviously, some of the things we talked about laterally of bringing people from other departments. I don't mean to keep preaching about it, but obviously we understand that the wage study and those things, that wage piece is the biggest piece of the puzzle. But we have some people to be able to bring experience over to Lapeer County and bring people in. The lateral stuff is moving. We've been, Quentin and Jeremy have put a ton of time into this, been talking with the unions. Everybody's being very flexible with it to try to find ways, obviously, that we can present to you guys as in what our plans would like to be. So that's big. And then the second piece is the academy, getting sponsored and having us be able to pay for the academy. The nice part about that, I had updated you multiple times on the Michigan Works thing. Jeremy has since talked to somebody that there's an existing program out there that I think was kept quiet for certain reasons for communities not like ours. And so we have, it looks like we're going to have full opportunity to do that, not only for our police side for the academy, but also to pay for the corrections academy, which is we've been paying for the entire time for this. So I give Jeremy a lot of credit for finding that part, but it's exciting. We are moving forward for it or with it. And I want to kind of give you an update because you've asked so many times, so I'm very grateful for that. The schools, obviously since the Oxford deal, Oxford tragic, horrible event, I give our schools in our county a lot of credit. Everybody's acting, trying to find different ways. I saw obviously in the paper the other day that Elmont started a safety committee that they're looking at making up some of the areas. Remember, a lot of times when we have these conversations, we got good working relationships with all the departments and the chiefs in there, and obviously the superintendents and things of that sort. Ultimately, as the sheriff's office, the only ones that we're predominantly have jurisdiction over, full jurisdiction over, is part of Lapeer Community Schools and North Branch Schools. Obviously, the other school districts fall into those jurisdictions that have law enforcement agencies. Obviously, we work very well together. We're in meetings together. We do those things all the time. We're very instrumental with Lapeer and North Branch because we have that. Obviously, again, with also ISD, being on Lake Pleasant. We have been in the last couple of weeks. I was in meetings all day yesterday with Chief Frisch, and we have started, you see Lapeer is moving very, very quickly in their school district. I give them a lot of credit. We have started, which again, showing the kind of relationships we talked about from the time we came in, is we currently, we have new SROs at Zemmer. And when I say SROs for the public, it's school resource officer, so liaison, school liaison, uniformed officer. We have a new one at Zemmer as of a few months back. And then Lapeer City has a new one at Roland Warner. What our goal was, Chief Frisch and I had in there, is obviously there's 3 in the Lapeer School District. It doesn't matter what uniform they have on, they work together. It doesn't matter if something's happening at the school, at the high school, which is in city jurisdiction, the county's going, we're gonna help with whatever it is. And that happens for all of our school districts. So we've been working heavily with that. The big push there, and I don't wanna steal the thunder of it, because this ultimately is the Lapeer School District that's doing it. You're gonna see a lot of things over the next few weeks. There is a complete push in switching over to the ALICE training, which you heard obviously a lot about through the Oxford situation, because as tragic as it was, and what we had was ALICE saved lives that day. There's been a push for that for a while. Lapeer School District put the pedal to the metal as into implementing this program. The nice part about it is we have a sergeant, Sergeant Brady is actually ALICE trained and has been since 2017. Him and Officer Wetzel, AJ, who's at the high school, and Sergeant Brady went to that training back in 17 when we first came in. So they're actually trainers for it. We since, with the new 2 liaisons that we have, Hunter at Zemmer and Stephanie at Roland Warner in the city, we've since just sent them through last month through ALICE training also. So we have 4 trainers that are here between us and the city that are basically teaming up to work together for all of this stuff. Obviously, when we talk about Lapeer schools, these 4 people, Chief Frisch and I were in the meeting yesterday, we both made it very clear in the chief's meeting, those 4 people are available to every one of our districts. We don't care what color uniform you're on, it's Lapeer County, and we're gonna take care of each other as such. So we've started that. You're gonna see there's multiple interior changes. One of the biggest things I think that we've done with all of them is we have, after I was very comfortable with the action plans for every one of our schools, but you'd be naive, especially after the event that we went through, not to revisit that and look at fine tuning different things and making it better, making it safer, input from multiple parties. So that's what we've been doing, basically changing every, or looking through and reevaluating every single action plan for every single school building that we have. A lot of work, and a lot of people have done a great job with it. Our SROs have been fantastic with it. You'll see on March 11th is the first of the ALICE training in Lapeer community schools. And then on March 18th, those will be our SROs that will be involved with the administration from Lapeer schools, putting that on. This is a high task, and I give them a lot of credit for what they've done, but ultimately between March 11th, especially on March 18th, they are going to train over 700 teachers, counselors, bus drivers, administrators. So it's going to be a lot of work. And we've taken on, I think everyone's pitched in to do so. It'll be nice to see to go through these things and understand it, but we have to understand the truth of the matter is, we've had some people say, okay, how enormous this project is, can we do it this quickly? The answer to that is no. We can lay a foundation so that we understand it, so that we're safer as of today, and then we have to build on that as we go. Obviously, the plans being teachers report a week, whatever that day is, 10 days before school starts when the kids come in. We'll roll that into their curriculum at the beginning on refreshers and how to do that every single year. So this will become our norm. So this is the first step of multiple steps, but we're going in the right direction and we're way ahead of the game because a lot of people are sitting back trying to figure out, evaluating different things. So I'm really proud of everybody that's done it. I like the idea is that we're doing it together, and that ultimately and the plans will be, we sat in the chiefs meeting last week talking to all the other chiefs. We'll send all of the ALICE trainers to Elmont. We'll send them to Imlay City. We'll send whatever it is that we got to do. If they got to go to Dryden and want to train, you have them. They're yours, whatever you want to do. The goal here is to keep our 5 school districts as safe as possible, so we're on the same page. The other biggest piece of that of training is we have to train together, because ultimately, I don't even want to pick a district because I don't want to jinx anything, but if we have a active shooter at whatever district in our community, who's responding? Every other one of our communities. So we need all of us to be on the same page. It's one of the biggest goals that we had was coming in, is you have entities, and it was always power struggles, things of that sort. You know, I don't, one doesn't play well with the other, whatever it is. But while we're doing it this way, and we're doing it this way, we're doing it this way. Take, for example, Oxford, a little bit different. I understand there's perimeters and jurisdictions and delineations that we're not going to cross training-wise, but ultimately, if we have something, every single agency we have in Lapeer County is going to be here, as we were in Oxford, walking into a situation where ultimately we don't know the school, we don't know how they train, some of the things there. I want to make sure that Lapeer County trains all the same, and everybody's on the same board with that, as in our chiefs and administration, so that we know, so that we're familiar with those schools. We're not walking into that school, unfortunately, knock on wood, on an incident that first time in the school at a time that's tragic. So I give them credit. You'll see obviously a lot of the stuff I'm sure will be publicized in the papers. Let's be truthful. This is still too soon. You got teachers, parents, kids that are still struggling after this incident, and rightfully so. So we're trying to be as passionate as we can in this training, but understanding that we are trying to move forward so that we make it better and safer for our schools and for our kids. The second part would be North Branch. We've made a lot of movements with North Branch. Mr. Fish has been obviously a joy to work with when it comes to these things. Jeremy's up there darn near daily, touching base with some of the things there. We're doing the same thing there, building new action plans, things of that sort for each one of the schools that are up there, each building, I would say is the better way to say it. And then ultimately, we will be doing the same thing with North Branch, and then to our ALS training and things of that sort to extend those hands. Won't get real in depth with it. I give Kelly Martin and Fish and Jeremy a lot of credit, because we now have a uniformed deputy that is in the schools the majority of the day. We didn't have that before. That's our big push, is we need. There's multiple pieces to that. I'm not saying it's a catch-all, fix-all of everything, but to have a uniformed officer that's in that school with those kids, not only for immediate reaction, but even for the bigger picture of relationships, some of the issues that happen. Some of those kids will talk to officers and deputies more than they would a school official. So we're moving forward. We got a lot going on, but I give them a ton of credit. Just a couple other things. One, I talked to you, I think this was a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the rules and regulations that we were redoing every single rule and regulation and policy that we have within the sheriff's office. That undertaking in itself could be half the department doing it for the next few months. Going back just to the history of it, we looked at Lexapro a few years ago, as in to try to do that because of how outdated a lot of those policies were. Lexapro was extremely expensive when it came to commission. And we looked at it in different ways. MMRMA looked at that point that they were going to come out with their own program, their model policies. Jeremy and I both felt that if we're going to align with somebody, why wouldn't it be our insurance carrier and the people that ultimately are going to support us in whatever it is that we are going to run across. They have just released that. I think I mentioned to you that the other day. One of the things I think we fell short in some of the areas before was getting involved in boards and things that are most important to the county and to the residents. I currently just now am sitting on the board for MMRMA. I know Quentin was just there. I mean, no disrespect to any of the past, anybody that stood up here. But having two of our county heads that are on the board and at these meetings puts us ahead of the game. And that's the way we have to think to benefit our citizens, to benefit our department. They have released all of theirs. It is enormous, the amount and the undertaking on it. I give credit because I walk by Jeremy's office recently, most of the time, because truthfully, a lot of these things hands-on are between Jeremy and I. I walk by and there's smoke coming out of Jeremy's ears as he's pulling some of these things off. You know, and as I just talked about, I just realized how much Jeremy works, because I said Jeremy's been doing the last 4 things. So I'm gonna go home for the week and we'll let Jeremy take care of it. So thank you again, Jeremy, for everything you do. So that is a big undertaking, but it's what we need to do. We need to be updated on what we're doing and how we're doing it. And two last things. I want to bring this to your attention because there's going to come a panic day where I'm going to stand in front of you. I got a call last week. Obviously, you guys have been godsends, and I appreciate that for you or from you. We talk about vehicles. We know what's happening in the country right now with vehicles and trying to get at the prices of everything. We have for our fiscal year, and if you go back to, if you remember last year, we had all of our Dodge Chargers that were ordered. We have VIN numbers. And Chrysler called and said, we cancel every one of your cars. And we went into panic mode because we need, obviously, with the operations of what we have covering the entire county. You guys were great with that. We worked through it. We ended up having to switch to Durangos, which obviously the price was higher. We were able to get somewhat we wanted, but we were short in the order of trying to do that. So we thought ahead. That's when we came in, Quentin came to you about, we had the Davidson Township cars that were canceled, and I give credit to Bob Reel, because Bob, we're the first one on the phone when something happens, to where you guys purchased and agreed to that to get those cars prior to this fiscal year budget, because we had no other options. At that same time, we ordered 4 new Durangos for 22's fiscal, right? That's our normal operation, 4 or 5 cars. We have those, we have equipment in for them. I got a call from Reel on Friday, actually from Tim Wilcox, that Chrysler placed orders, 5,000 orders of over what they're able to produce. They canceled all of our cars. And the problem is, I sit on the phone going, explain this to me, how this is even not only us, but 5,000. Let's be straight, let's be honest. We order 4 or 5 cars. You take DPD, who orders 100, we're gonna do the small order that's shut down. We have no cars coming for the rest of this year. So I said, okay, well, can we put our order into that? No, you can't place any orders till 2023. So I bring that up because these are the things we see on TV or we see in the consumer market. This crushes us. So then we backtracked, went to John Bussell. Eric Kanyak's a big person for us that does a lot of the things with it. Okay, well, let's look at Tahoes. Let's look at it. Well, we placed that order for Dodge because they told us that back in 2022. Chevy, all the other, and Ford, they're all the same way. Well, you would have had to place that order back in 22. You can't place an order now or in 21. You have to place it now in 23. So we're in a bind. Why do I bring this story up to you? One, kind of let you know, people realize of what we do. These cars run 24 hours a day, a lot of them. But there could come a day, we got feelers out in different ways. There might come a day to where I come and say, hey, somebody in the UP just canceled their order, whatever it is that we have to do. I just want to kind of give you that heads up before it happens. I hope that I can stand in front of you at one point and say that actually happens, but I wanted to kind of give you the heads up on it. Lastly, I've talked to you about, and this is the one thing that I've really dropped the ball on, but we're going 100 miles an hour. I talked to you about the Youth Advisory Council, the YAC Kids for Community Foundation, which I sit on. We did the school surveys. I talked to you ad nauseum about that, so I won't go through that. But what I would like to ask is, we've been trying to get into the schools to go over the results with the kids, with the students, and do programs in the school districts. But then I think the other big piece of that is the public forum, the parent forum, so the parent understands what's going on with these kids. Not getting into a lot of things, but this one was really focused on COVID and the effect that it had on them, with being school shut down and things like that. It'll make you sick to your stomach when you see the anxiety, the depression, the thoughts of suicide and stuff, the large numbers that you'll see that it's scary. But I think the parents need to hear that stuff and understand to sit down and talk with their kids, walk them through it. A lot of people don't understand it, so what do we do? Just like the Oxford deal, I don't really know what to say, and ultimately they don't say anything at all, which doesn't help. But I'm not ripping the parents with it, but we have to get better with it. I want them to see these results. The problem is, I can't find time to get to do all these programs right now. What I would like to do, and I'll look at it probably after their spring break, I'd like to come in and present those results to you guys. So, and obviously with the forum and for everybody to be able to see them, I'd like you to be able to see some of the things. Because to be honest with you, we do the surveys, they're separately done in all 5 school districts, but they are the results, very similar. There's really not a big change between districts. So I'd like to have them come in and do it. But if I may, I'd like to bring those youth advisory, those YAC kids in here that day, introduce you to them, show them, only because I think it's so important. Obviously, these are kids from all our schools and all 5 school districts. They're fantastic kids, and to be honest with you, the future of the ones that I hope are gonna make our messy world, we can clean it up. But bring them in and kind of have them explain some of the things that I think would be good for us to hear all that, but I think it would be good for them because of all the work they put into it. Bring it in, do a presentation on the results and what you see. Because I think it's important too, when you're out talking to your townships and constituents and things like that, that you hear those things. So I kind of gauge that for somewhere after their spring break, once things settles down a little bit. Obviously I'll get it on the agenda before so that you know, we'll come up and set it up and do a program for it. Any questions? I know it's long.
You did it great. I was just gonna say, are you sure that you're gonna have time to do that, Scott?
I don't know.
Is Jeremy gonna do that for you?
Oh, no, yeah. No, there's not a chance in hell I'm doing it.
You missed the first part.
The funny part is those first 4 things, I'm like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Jeremy's doing all of it. So I greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sheriff. We apologize to the public. We're not taking any time away from you, so if there are public comments, please do come forward.
Alan Pierce, Hadley Township again. Again, thank you all, the board, for, I guess, voting for me to be a part of the senior programs. And it's been a challenge thus far, digging, finding information, et cetera, et cetera. Yesterday, late afternoon, I finally got the actual numbers together for this millage. I see it. I got a copy of it, but I had to go to the office to get it. Okay, the public can't, that would not be good for the public, everybody in the public to do it. So I'm taking a few minutes just to let the public know, the board know what I found out. The millage rate that's going to be proposed to you all to approve, to be put on the ballot, will be 0.3916. Okay? And that's based on the information that came in this morning that you guys saw from the canteen, the adjusted meals. So I then went to, and I'd like to publicly thank the Hadley Township office. They were open at 5 p.m. last night, and I saw the cars, so I stopped. And what that means to the public, that 0.3916, if you've got a asset assessed value of $100,000 on your property, that will be $39.16 a year for this millage. If you have an assessed value of $150,000, that would be $58.74. And to me, I got to see it to understand it. And I'm sure that if the public understands it, and the numbers that were given to me as far as what led into that, I still have questions, obviously, about the numbers that go into getting that 0.3916. And they aren't small numbers. And I have not had the opportunity to talk to the appropriate people to match these numbers that we're asking the taxpayers to support us on for the next 4 years. But I'm going to be doing my due diligence because that's what you guys allowed me to do. And I'm very vocal. You all know that. And I will search each and every line item here. But having $24,000 in a budget per year to operate 3 vehicles, to deliver meals that are already paid for and owned by the county. I plan sometime today or tomorrow to go out to our county, motor pool and find out from them why we are paying per mile that we're driving a county car for the program to deliver meals to seniors. I'm just saying, I'll go out there and I'll find out the information. I know you guys don't want to react.
Yeah, well, there may be a better source for that information.
Oh, okay. But, yeah, okay, that'd be great. So I felt compelled to let you guys know the two things I found out late yesterday. Because I know that there's some kind of rush because it's gotta be, put through you guys, approved in order to have it on the August ballot. So, I was just trying to do my due diligence and update you. And I'm not a department head, so I couldn't do it during the department at that time. I had to do my public comment.
Thank you. Okay, other members of
Make it really quick. Carol Wynn, Marathon Township. I just want to thank the clerk for presenting the information she did. And I guess this all goes back to electing people who represent the people on every level. Seems like every meeting we go to that is a government meeting, as people, we find that the decisions that are being made like we have to defend ourselves. It seems like it's always off balance that the elected body is defending the corporation or the company or organization that wants to come in and do something, and we the people are the ones that have to defend ourselves. It's exhausting. And if all these decisions were made or were made legislatively, I sure would love to see the campaign contributions by some of these corporations. It always goes back to integrity, and there's no way for an honest election to happen if we don't have honest ballot workers. And also, I know that someone had asked me a question about, there's an option on these machines for electronic storage of ballot images. And I know if that can be turned off. And if that was turned off by any of our clerks, then that is one way for it to be less likely that we can have a proper audit. I think there's lots of levels for this, and I think that questions are good. So if that option was turned off, I don't think that was a good thing. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Public time, just to respond to the question about images being stored on the programming. That is a programming issue, and I have requested that be turned off because it delays the ballot processing. It is not a security issue because we still have the paper ballots and security. And any of that information can be FOIA'd by anybody that's interested in seeing it. They can't touch the ballots, but they can FOIA the ballots and review them if they're handled by a deputy clerk or a clerk. So we are not required to have the images saved. That is an option in the programming.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, thank you. Public has been very patient with us. Now, coming to the Commissioner's report, I would ask us to be brief to the point. To start, Commissioner Warren.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long meeting. There's so much stuff that really should have been covered. But I was glad to see the medical examiner here today. I'm glad to see the health department here today. There's been so many reports of COVID and talked about it, and there's still talk about COVID. There's still talk about other things coming, as you heard from one of our constituents earlier. What Kate said about the future. We do have to be aware. We do have to be diligent, but we also have to be able to allow the American people to make a decision for themselves. We cannot lock up this country again. We can't go that way. No matter what comes down the road, we got to be tough and fight, stay strong. We're hearing stuff about these vaccines are still FDA approved. They're not. Moderna is not approved as of last night. Moderna is not approved. It's approved for emergency use authorization. It's not approved for use in the public on a normal basis. And when they do make that, then we can hold accountable the doctors and the scientists and stuff that are giving us wrong information. There's information about VAERS out there that represents about 1% of the complaints that come in. VAERS is a complaint center. Anybody can make a report to VAERS. They're not accurate. They're letting the medical industry know that something happened after I had something done. All nurses and all doctors understand what VAERS is. Some doctors have not been able to report to them. People aren't aware of that. Everything's been controlled by Fauci and our government. Autopsies show vaccinated teens for COVID is literally heartbreaking. We got a young person here, a military docs dropped vaccine bombshell, but fact check explanation talk about what the vaccines are actually doing, some of the side effects. The military is showing what's happening. Nearly 24,000 deaths have been given this after COVID vaccines reported VAERS data. 24,000 deaths. We're still pushing vaccines. Children, the least, right from the beginning, was never really going to be an issue of them having any issues with COVID. Never. But we're still talking about getting vaccines for our children. And some parents are doing it because they're doing it out of fear and they're believing they're scientists. Scientists are scientists and they all have different opinions. Some may be right, some may think they're right, and others question both of them. And then we should be questioning. This is their websites. Pfizer's, Moderna's, not FDA's approved. You can go on for Spikevax. That's for the Moderna. You can find out their results. All of a sudden, we have a State of the Union speech. No more mask mandate. No more nothing. He just solved our problem, our president of the United States. But it may come back again. He's wearing masks, running out in public and out in the field, he's still wearing masks. It's insulting. It's insulting to me as an American citizen, because we're the freest country in the world to be able to make a decision. CDC no longer recommends universal contact tracing. Case investigation yesterday. How were you even doing contact tracing to begin with? I understand some of it. I didn't understand all of it. I didn't feel like the government following anybody for any reason. Going where you're at, who you are, questioning us, and going above beyond what they passed on the HIPAA law. Why would they even do the HIPAA law? It didn't make any sense to me at all. But package insert to talk about side effects. They're not talking about the side effects for American people. It's a shame. And we all have to start questioning our doctors. I respect every person in authority until they don't do their job protecting me. That doesn't mean because he's authority, he has got the guy. That doesn't mean that the sheriff can arrest me because he doesn't like what I'm saying. He's not going to do that. Our sheriff is pretty good. But because he said that, I should be able, their deputy should be able to ride that sheriff. Not that he's not following his chain of command, but the guy is going against the Constitution of the United States. Our inalienable given rights, God-given rights, that we get to make a decision, has gone out the window. And when I'm reading about legislation on the ballots and election stuff, these are people we put in office have changed these rules. Up to even 2020, some rules got changed. And we all have to pay attention, and we all have to get smart now, because there's other stuff coming down the road. We're talking about Ukraine and Russia, and I feel sorry for all of them, but that's their political agenda. We're not talking about the people coming across our border. We're not talking about what happened in Canada, and we're not talking about the 10,000 trucks that are going across this country right now. The news is not even telling you what's going on. So if you're not digging into it, you're gonna get a wake-up call. It's coming. I'll tell you, my suggestion is everybody start paying attention to what's going on and ask all your seniors, representatives, what their position is on these things. And let's do something right in the future. So that's all I got to say for today.
Just a reminder, we have an ARC meeting after personnel meeting upstairs.
I think it's just so you know, personnel is only gonna be really short. It should not be.
Good. You watched the State of the Union address the other night. anybody who could actually sit through and watch that, congratulations to you, better than I could. I had to turn it off several times. Unfortunately, keep our friends in Ukraine in your prayers. They obviously need it. What an awesome leadership their president has shown though over the past week and a half here or whatever. Really great to see that. You know, just definitely his country is definitely behind him, and the solidarity of that is really good to see. So that's all I have.
Commissioner Schneider.
Meeting went on, we've got some committees, so I'll wait this week.
I guess I'll do the same. Ellen reported on the senior meeting, so.
You're okay? Brendan?
I just wanted to say thank you to Quinton and our health department for working to reduce those prices on canteen. That is critically important, and that is very much appreciated from my side. I did have a question on the senior advisory meeting. Linda, were you there? Okay. What was the attendance like?
Good.
Good. Well
I think
above
there
norm?
was 3 at one table.
7 board members were there.
Were there?
7 of the 13.
Oh, great, okay. I just wanted to say thank you to the medical examiners for showing up and sitting through all this meeting. And that, the other thing I want to take note of, Tuscola County passed a resolution regarding Phil Green's bill in regards to the issues with car no fault insurance. I would encourage you all, if you haven't already, to take a look at Phil Green's bill. Not very long, not too complicated either. I think it's a good bill. I might plan to forward the resolution to you all in case you haven't seen it yet. I do think it's something we might want to consider here because we do have some residents that are in straits in regards to this current situation. So that's all I'll say.
Okay, as Commissioner Snyder pointed out, I believe, or Commissioner Zeppi, we do have 2 committees, personnel, which will follow after we adjourn our meeting in 10 minutes for a break here, and then upstairs after. I was also going to mention a question I think came up about the Lapeer Community Collaborative and the new coordinator for that position. Ben Cummings is that person. He was at his first meeting yesterday, our online meeting. So we're underway with some new leadership in that area. We appreciate that. With that,
Just a 5-minute recess, because I've got a lunch meeting now. So
okay, if we can do it in 5 minutes, that'll be good. Let's aim for 5 minutes. I need a motion.
Make a motion.
Okay, all those in favor, aye. Adjourned.
And I'll-